personally take issue with them saying transmission among children in schools is low when schools have been closed since March. So what exactly have they been studying? And I don't think our teachers are willing to be test subjects.
In some local school districts, school starts next week. We're taking a look at the challenges teachers could be facing and do they have the support they need?
My fitness level hasn't come back yet.
Still have coughing. I still have asthma.
And we're going to follow up with 3 COVID-19 survivors we first spoke to nearly 4 months ago. Their stories of their ongoing recovery coming up.
It was 115 degrees today at Palm Springs International, and we're just getting started. An excessive heat warning goes into effect on Thursday. I'll tell you the whole story coming up.
This is NBC Palm Springs.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Gino Lamont.
And I'm Sarah Sanchez. School for some students in the Coachella Valley will begin next week. Learning will begin online, but teachers are concerned about funding and making sure students are equipped to learn from home. Our Nico Payne is live now from Palm Springs High School with more on how parents, students, and teachers are getting ready for the big day. Nico.
Palm Springs High has been empty since March, and it will stay that way as students head back to school online next week. Today, I spoke to local teachers, and they tell me about the challenges they face to prepare for an unprecedented school year.
According to the National Center for Education Statistics, California teachers spend on average $664 on classroom and learning supplies, and that was before the pandemic.
I think your figure is very conservative because I think it's probably more around $1,000.
I know a number of educators who have spent money on technology this summer, and even some that are purchasing their own platforms, virtual platforms, because they're the ones that the students like the best.
Desert Sands Unified already had a program in place to get technology to students, but other districts were not prepared for such a rapid shift to online learning.
A couple of years ago, and in order to save money with the budget, our district pretty much significantly cut our IT department. They just flat out don't have the manpower that they need to provide the level of support that's needed.
And both teachers had strong reactions to the revised guidelines released by the CDC last week, stressing the need to get students into the classroom.
I personally take issue with them saying transmission among children in schools is low when schools have been closed since March. So what exactly have they been studying? And I don't think our teachers are willing to be test subjects.
Yes, there is a significant impact to social and emotional learning, and students do need to be able to socialize with each other, but not at the risk of getting sick and dying or infecting someone else, a family member.
And though teachers will be teaching online, Palm Springs Unified School District has decided to allow teachers the choice on whether to teach from home or from their classrooms. Other districts have not yet voted on the matter. Reporting live, I'm Nico Payne, NBC Palm Springs.
All right, thank you, Nico. Governor Newsom has announced California's Central Valley will receive extra funding to help in the fight against coronavirus. Some are hoping that means help for farm workers, a population that's seen significant risk of infection. Our Regina Urita brings us reaction from groups fighting for farm worker protection.
With anguish, Maria Irma Escobedo describes witnessing a coworker die from COVID-19 after contracting the virus at a packing plant they both worked at in Kern County. She also says the unsafe working conditions could have easily been prevented if the company Primex Farms would have offered proper protective equipment. While this incident happened hundreds of miles away, the story resonates with those in the eastern Coachella Valley. Local activists say it's only a matter of time before a field worker here dies from the disease.
Farm workers do not feel protected when it comes to COVID-19.
The United Farm Workers have filed a labor grievance claiming they are enduring unsafe working conditions. They say workers lack access to hand soap and protective masks, all while working in tight quarters.
Now, we're in the middle of the grape fields here in the eastern Coachella Valley, and I wanted to show you how narrow these fields are, which makes it very difficult for field workers to keep that distance during this pandemic.
Governor Newsom announced relief will be coming for farm workers, but he has not yet given specifics.
Needs to do more. We must take action to ensure that our farm workers are protected, especially if we're going to avoid any kind of the disruption to our food supply.
That's why Assemblymember Robert Rivas introduced a COVID-19 farm worker relief package.
Classifying, deeming farm workers as essential workers, that must come with the protections that essential workers deserve.
In Thermal, Regina Urita, NBC Palm Springs.
We're taking a live look now, courtesy of our Agua Caliente Casino cam. So let's check in with NBC Palm Springs Chief Meteorologist Mike Everett, who's standing by with your AccuWeather forecast. Hey, Mike, a hot one out there today, huh?
It was a hot one out there, but we're just getting started, Gino. We got a ridge of high pressure that's building across the southwest. In fact, this one's going to set up shop right between Utah and Arizona. What that does, you can see on Futurecast, is just sending any cloud cover or any potential storm activity well off towards our north and east, everything down towards the south, including that monsoonal flow that we've been tracking pretty much the entire month of July, is just going to scoot well off towards the east or down towards the south there. Bottom line, it's going to be clear, it's going to be hot, it's going to be dry, and that's going to last into the weekend. Case in point, right now, 113 degrees, Palm Springs International. We hit 115 today, so we backed off 2 degrees from our high. Thankfully, the breeze picking up early today. We got a sustained wind about 13 to 15 miles an hour at Palm Springs International. That'll pick up to about 20, 25 tonight before it all settles down after midnight. And it's dry out there as well. Humidity sitting at 9%, looking for a nice recovery back into the 20s and 30s overnight tonight. The big story in weather here locally is the excessive heat watch. That will be in place on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. So if you think it's hot today, wait till you see the numbers. I'll show you those in just a moment. Next 3 days brought to you by Comfort Air, showing us warm again on Wednesday. You can call 118 hot, and those overnights will be in the upper 80s. It looks like we're going to be doing that Thursday and Friday, and then the 110s and possibly some 120s are headed our way this weekend. I've got the details in your full forecast minutes away.
All right, thank you, Mike. New information about the sexual harassment lawsuit settlement against former Cathedral City Police Chief Travis Walker. Last week, a judge dismissed the suit after both parties reached an agreement outside of court. Tonight, we've learned how much it cost the city of Cathedral City to reach that settlement. $500,000 was paid to the plaintiff.
It's been over a week since a Desert Hot Springs boy was attacked on his way home from a pool party. And tonight, our Kitty Alvarado talks to Gavin Ludwig's mother about how he's doing.
Baby boy, you're such a precious boy. 7-year-old Gavin Ludwig is still recovering from a head injury in the hospital. He was brutally attacked on his way home from a pool party in Desert Hot Springs. His mom, Wendy, has not left the hospital since he was admitted on July 18th.
To see him lying in the hospital bed, uncomfortable, crying, not being able to get up and play like he normally does, it's just heartbreaking.
Gavin is now making small progress, like sitting up. And while doctors don't know the extent of the damage yet because his brain still has swelling, they do know he will need physical and speech therapies and surgeries until he stops growing.
He has to have a titanium plate inserted because the bones were so broken, fragmented, and he'll have to have that replaced as his head grows.
Police say 32-year-old Daniel Polson beat Gavin, who never even saw him coming. Wendy says he was just feet away from getting home.
And this man cut across my neighbor's front yard, picked up a large rock, and he walked up to Gavin and just smashed the rock into his head. He was almost home, and this evil man attacked him.
Polson was charged with attempted murder and had several outbursts when he appeared in court. The court ordered a mental evaluation before he can stand trial. Polson has a long criminal record that includes lewd acts and molesting a child under 18. He was deemed mentally incompetent to stand trial 11 other times. Wendy is angry that Polson, who lived a few doors down, was on the streets.
It's completely outrageous.
This has been a tough year for Wendy and her family. Her husband died of cancer just a few months ago.
He was my everything, and he was Gavin's daddy. He and Gavin were so close. To lose him and then to have this happen, I don't know why.
She finds hope in the support the community has shown her family, because they will need it for months, maybe years to come.
The world's not full of the bad people. It's not a bad place. There's so many good people still here, and I appreciate it so much.
Kitty Alvarado, NBC Palm Springs.
All right. Here's a look at the latest COVID-19 numbers from Riverside County and here in the Coachella Valley. More than 700 new cases reported in the county, 160 here in the desert. Only one new death countywide, and that was not from the Coachella Valley.
And for some perspective, here's a graph from Riverside County Public Health. This shows each day's reported cases. You can see several spikes in the past month, but lately we have been steady with around 800 new cases a day. And this graph tracks the number of daily tests in the county and how many of those are positive. The most recent data confirms our positivity rate is near 14%. That means around 14% of people who have been tested in the county were positive for COVID-19.
We're going to follow up now on a story we first brought you nearly 4 months ago. We're going to meet 3 local survivors of COVID-19. Our Daytona Everett has their journeys with the virus and the road to recovery and how they're feeling today. And she joins us now in studio with more. Daytona.
Gino, at this point, there's still so much that we don't know about this virus, but what we do know is it affects everyone differently. And these 3 people right here are a perfect example of that. Hi, how are you?
Feeling really good.
It's just a day-by-day thing.
I'm feeling pretty good, actually.
Marcella Marino, Tanya Moss, and Craig Kawashima all contracted COVID-19 months ago.
When I got that call on Thursday that my test was positive, I thought I had been given a death sentence.
While they all know now, COVID was not a death sentence for them, they're all still feeling some symptoms.
My fitness level hasn't come back yet.
Still have coughing. I still have asthma.
I'm a little bit more sensitive to my typical allergies.
At one point, Tanya thought she had it again.
Come to find out, it was strep throat and severe case of tonsillitis like I've never had in my life. Thereafter, I just made some pretty big decisions and decided to quit my job that I've been at for about 15 years. It was a really high risk location. After being sick, I realized life is just way too short.
Craig, on the other hand, is now working in the highest possible risk location, the COVID unit.
It's kind of scary to kind of go back into it, but at the same time, like, I know firsthand what they're going through.
As for Marcella, she took a month-long vacation from her work in the health industry.
So this break was definitely needed.
While their lives have changed in many ways, their messages to the public have not.
You know, being safe and being diligent.
Please wear your mask coverings properly. Cover your nose, cover your mouth.
Do not let your guard down. It is very much real. It is very much still happening.
Now, all 3 of them are still taking precautions because the antibodies aren't always permanent. That means that people who have gotten the virus, they might be able to get it again. For NBC Palm Springs, I'm Daytona Everett.
Coronavirus coverage brought to you by East Valley COVID-19 testing site, serving residents of eastern Coachella Valley.
Now, a quick update on that fire that broke out over the weekend near Tramway Road in Palm Springs. We're told it's 100% contained. The fire broke out Saturday and burned more than 200 acres.
And in Desert Hot Springs tonight, they've issued a silver alert. 71-year-old Arthur Molina is missing. He was last seen at his home Monday between 10:30 and 11:30 a.m. We're told he has cognitive health issues. Mr. Molina was last seen wearing a white turtleneck, gray shorts, and no shoes, driving a white 2005 Chevy Impala. If you have any information about where he might be, you're asked to please call the Desert Hot Springs Police Department. Coming up next in Washington, a call for FCC oversight on social media, including Facebook and Twitter. How President Trump is moving forward on an executive order months after Twitter labeled his tweets as, quote, potentially misleading.
The government, the Treasury, they gave $2 trillion for PPP loans for small businesses. 85% of it went to major corporations.
And this man caught on camera complaining about PPP loans for major corporations is now charged with bank fraud. And we're learning more about his extravagant purchases with the PPP money, according to police. And the Emmys are still happening in September, but we're not sure how the ceremony will look. But nominations are still out, and we'll take a look at those coming up.
The Trump administration has formally asked the FCC to develop regulations that could apply to social media platforms. It's a key step toward President Trump fulfilling his executive order to regulate social media. The order asks FCC to clarify a section of law that has shielded tech companies from litigation over internet content since 1996. Legal experts say the agency has traditionally avoided regulating internet companies, at least in the recent past.
Regal Cinema plans to reopen some of its locations in the U.S. on August 21st. Theaters will enforce health and safety measures, including mask requirements for employees and customers. There are 3 Regal movie theaters in the Coachella Valley, but Riverside County and some other 30 California counties are under a state order preventing movie theaters and other indoor activities from opening anytime soon.
The airline industry trade group says air traffic won't get back to 2019 levels until sometime in 2024. That's much later than previously expected. There has been a small uptick in air travel, but activity in June was weaker than the expectations, which frankly were low to begin with. Europe saw almost no recovery, and passenger numbers are still low at all times on every plane that is flying. Experts are worried business travel will never get back to pre-coronavirus levels as more and more people can work from home, thus cutting down on that travel.
More people are avoiding hotels and planes, but apparently they're flocking to the woods. An outdoor store in Santa Barbara says it's seeing huge jump in sales. Some suppliers are so backed up, people looking for a tent will have to wait until at least mid-August to get one.
We have no more stock. Like, we can't get new tents. It's been almost impossible to keep up with the demand as far as a roof rack goes.
And with most state and national parks either closed or reservations full, that demand for car camping may stick around as long as the pandemic does.
Coming up after the break, we're going to take a look at our forecast with our good friend Mike Everett, who we are always listening to every moment. Huh, Mike?
I appreciate that very much, Gino. You know what? We are tracking a weekend where it may actually be a pretty decent idea to get out of town. I'll tell you what it looks like here and give you some more live looks when we come back. Welcome back. I promised you a gorgeous live look when we came back, and there it is. There is the river in all its glory. That water looking very refreshing out there. Bit of a breeze out there, not as gusty as it was last night. It's about 20-25 miles an hour is what we'll top out along the I-10 corridor tonight. And then after that sun goes down, we'll see all of that pressure equalize, and we'll see much calmer conditions. If you are planning on heading out tonight, here's something that you can do late tonight and early tomorrow morning. We're going to see the Delta Aquarids. It's going to be a meteor shower. You get about 20 per hour. Obviously, the the further you can get away from the light pollution of the Coachella Valley, the better. And the moon's going to be a bit of an issue. It's about a half moon right now, so it is a bit on the bright side, but it will be setting at 1:21. So bottom line, if you want to get up early, I would say around 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, it's going to be your best chance to see some meteors. Who doesn't enjoy a good meteor shower? Skies will not be an issue. In fact, we are tracking high pressure building across the region. I was marveling at this earlier. Almost looks like a fight's getting ready to break out across the southwest. You can see all that cloud cover just taking off towards the north and east, like, nah, I don't want any part of this. And down towards the south, we're seeing that as well. You remember, for the entire month of July, we've been watching monsoonal flow come up into Arizona, New Mexico, and Colorado. Yeah, well, even this time around, you're going to be seeing that making its way off towards the west over mainland Mexico and Baja. Pretty powerful low punching into the Pacific Northwest. Won't have much of an influence for us, but what it will eventually do is take that ridge and move it a little further off towards the east. Bottom line, next week will be slightly cooler, but don't get your hopes up. I'll show you that in a moment. Severe weather, well, it's warm across the Northwest right now. That low will actually help our friends towards the north out a little bit. We've got a heat watch that's in place there up towards northern Washington. Red flag warnings in place in parts of Oregon and Washington there, even spreading into Idaho. And then all that purple is something that we've got. I'll tell you about that in a moment. In the meantime, taking a look across the country, we're going to be seeing some excessive heat in New York. In fact, they've got a heat advisory in place. We've got those conditions putting heat and humidity together, putting those heat indices over 100 degrees. It's going to be warm and muggy in Miami, but that's the time of year. 93 in Dallas, 112 tomorrow in Phoenix, and look at that, 93 in Portland, 81 in Vancouver. That's when you know it's summertime. 93 tomorrow in Billings. It's even going to be 92 in Denver. It's going to be warm here as well, but we haven't even really gotten to the peak yet. Excessive heat watch goes into place here for the Coachella Valley. We will be here Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, expecting to get into the upper 110s, possibly some lower 120s, and then off towards the east as well. Excessive heat watch in place there. Looks like it's going to be warm all the way across the southwest. If there is one saving grace, it looks like folks who are using evaporative coolers are going to be blessed. We're going to be seeing dew points that'll be in the low to mid 40s, about 10% humidity. No worries there at all. 113 currently in Havasu and in Yuma, 111 here, 72 currently in LA, 68 in San Diego. The marine layer has been an issue along the coast. That'll get thinner this weekend. If you want to head over there, it should be gorgeous. 115 is what we did today. 1995, we were 123 degrees, so we've got something to look forward to there. 78 in the overnights is where we got to. 109 currently in Thousand Palms, 111 in Coachella, 96 in the Yucca Valley, and 77 up in Big Bear. Winds gusty again tonight, getting up to about 25, 30 miles an hour along the I-10 corridor, and then settling back into single digits after midnight tonight. We'll do the whole thing again tomorrow, and we'll be very slow to cool. In fact, I don't see us getting into the 70s tonight. We'll start in the lower 80s and be warm again tomorrow. 115, the operative number from Palm Springs through Indio. 106 up towards Joshua Tree. It's even going to be in the mid 80s up in Big Bear. Your Comfort Air 7-day forecast shows some heat headed our way. Friday and Saturday are going to be warm, but as I mentioned, the first days of August look like we'll pull back into the mid-teens, and we'll get those overnights back in the 70s.
least 6 buildings burn in a massive fire in San Francisco this morning. One firefighter was injured, but he's expected to be okay. The cause of this fire is still under investigation, and crews are expected to remain at the scene for days.
A number of protesters in Sacramento chained themselves to the gate of the governor's mansion. Dozens of people gathered to demand the release of prisoners who they say are at risk of dying due to COVID-19 exposure. The group calls itself the California Liberation Collective. It says prisoners aren't getting adequate medical care and are not socially distancing. At least 6,500 California inmates have tested positive for the virus. 37 of them have died.
It's a common predicament for college students right now. They've been forced out of their university campuses, but are still stuck in their off-campus apartment leases. Gail Ong reports.
Once it starts, I will just be accumulating debt.
Edward Huang signed a lease for an apartment at Stonefire Berkeley before the pandemic in November of last year. Huang is a rising senior at UC Berkeley. He's supposed to move in his new apartment on August 1st, but when the campus announced its closure into spring, he notified property management.
I did notify them all the way back in April of this year that I wanted to terminate it. But since then, there hasn't been any successful negotiations.
Huang says his lease agreement says he is responsible for 6 months' rent to terminate the lease.
I'm just a student coming out of college. There's no possible way I alone would be able to pay $30,000 to terminate a lease that hasn't even started yet.
Huang says he knows many other students in the same predicament and are desperately seeking out legal advice. We spoke to attorney Ara Jabakchorian.
So the argument that's going to have to be raised is the frustration of purpose. So, if somebody comes in and they're being forced to pay for 6 months and they don't pay the 6 months, obviously they're going to be sued by the landlord. And the defense has got to be, look, judge, I was here, I came here for college. College said, sorry, no on-campus classes, everything's being done by Zoom. My purpose of going to that apartment was solely to go to college.
Back in April, UC Berkeley sent this update notifying students living off campus to pay close attention to the terms of their lease, warning most off-campus leases will not provide refunds.
What we're seeing here today is really an unfortunate consequence of the pandemic and its effect on our economy.
Joshua Howard is Executive Vice President of Local Government Affairs with California Apartment Association.
Rental housing providers have significant financial obligations, mortgages, property taxes, payroll, their own staff.
Howard is calling on the state and federal government to prioritize rent relief for rental housing providers. And in Huang's case,
well, we would really encourage the housing provider and the landlord to try to find a way to work with that student, work with all tenants, because at the end of the day, everyone's affected by this pandemic.
For now, Huang is staying with his parents in Santa Clara, hoping there will be a resolution with his lease.
Coming up next, contentious exchanges on Capitol Hill when U.S. Attorney General fielded questions from lawmakers.
And mysterious packets of seeds from China are arriving on the doorsteps across the U.S., but no one ordered them. We're looking at the theory behind the mystery and why the USDA is telling people to report them. Now to Capitol Hill with an intense and very contentious House Judiciary hearing. Attorney General William Barr testified for the first time, and lawmakers held nothing back. They're questioning his actions and motives on several decisions, including the administration's decision to send federal officers to Portland and other cities dealing with sometimes violent protests.
You are aware of certain kinds of protesters, but in Michigan, when protesters carry guns and Confederate flags and swastikas and call for the governor of Michigan to be beheaded and shot and lynched, somehow you're not aware of that. Somehow you didn't know about it, so you didn't send federal agents in to do to the president's supporters what you did to the president's protesters.
Democrats also accused Barr of inappropriately stepping in to investigate the origins of the Russia probe and protecting the president's allies like Michael Flynn and Roger Stone.
Trump administration rejects new DACA applications while they conduct a comprehensive review of the program. The White House announces the U.S. will take steps to wind down legal protection for immigrant children known as Dreamers. The Supreme Court recently stopped the president's plan to end the program, calling his actions unconstitutional. A White House official says despite the ruling, the White House still views the DACA program as illegal.
Notre Dame decides against hosting the presidential debate because of coronavirus concerns. The event will now take place in Cleveland. Earlier this summer, the University of Michigan withdrew as host. That debate will now take place in Miami, Florida.
All right, let's take a live look outside, courtesy of our Agua Caliente Casino cam. Looks a little fuzzy out there, Mike. Is it the camera or is it fuzzy out?
Oh, it's totally fuzzy out.
Okay, good. Thanks. It's not just me.
No, you know what that is it's actually something we've been seeing all summer long, is that marine layer has been very persistent along the coast. In fact, a lot of people have been going there, have been reporting the same thing to me, is that it's really been stubborn about mixing up. What that means is around 11 o'clock in the morning, noon, 1 o'clock, you expect to see some sunshine along the coast. It'll be gray in the mornings, but it's been stubborn over the last couple of days. And what happens is once it mixes out, it has nowhere to go. It pushes into the inland valleys. You see a lot of that hanging out in the Banning Pass. As soon as it tries to come into the Coachella Valley, we're a dry, arid air mass, so it just kind of sits there. And then as the sun kind of just reflects off it, it makes for some gorgeous sunsets. Looks like we're going to continue to stay dry, though. Look at that. We were down at 9% humidity earlier, just getting up to 11% right now. And speaking of 11, it's currently 111 degrees at the airport. We were 115 today. 108 is the 30-year average for this time of year, so we were well above that, just getting started as we go into the weekend. Wind coming in from the northwest, sustained about 18 to 20. It'll gust up to about 30 tonight and then sit down wonderfully later. Not sure where radar went, but what I want to show you is this. As we push the magic button, a couple things to tell you about. We've got an excessive heat watch in place for the Coachella Valley Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, expecting temperatures to bump into the upper 110s and possibly some lower 120s. I'll give you the details on that coming up. But as we go through the rest of the evening, it's going to be one of those slow coolers. We'll get ourselves back into the 90s around 10 o'clock, and we'll start off warm on Wednesday morning. Next 3 days brought to you by Comfort Air shows us getting downright hot on Thursday. That's when that watch kicks in. Friday's going to be a cooker as well. I'll tell you how long this lasts and, more importantly, when it cools coming up.
All right, thank you, Mike. Here's your tax dollars hard at work. A Miami man is charged with fraud after authorities say he used part of his $4 million PPP loan for personal luxury expenses. Those loans, of course, were meant to help keep businesses up and running or keep their employees hired. Officials say David Hines spent the money on dating apps, jewelry, clothing, and a Lamborghini valued at more than $300,000. Just days ago, Hines was caught on camera getting a fine for not wearing a mask in public, where he was heard talking about those PPP loans.
Every single business has gone out of business. The government, the Treasury, they gave $2 trillion for PPP loans for small businesses. 85% of it went to major corporations.
Yeah, he didn't say anything about the loans going to swanky hotels or high-end shopping, but the government says he spent more than $15,000 at Saks and hotels in and around Miami. He's being charged with bank fraud as well as several other offenses.
Mysterious, unsolicited packages of seeds rumored to be sent from China are arriving on American doorsteps. Now, agriculture departments across the U.S. are issuing warnings against planting them. The seeds may be invasive species. The reason for the seeds? Well, they could be tied to a fake product review scam. Sellers trying to boost their ratings of their own merchandise set up a fake Amazon profile, then purchase random items and ship them to the address of a random person. Now, once the package is delivered, it's listed as a verified purchase, and a positive review can be posted, which then gets the product higher on Amazon search results. But why seeds? I don't know.
Okay. Coming up in sports, Major League Baseball continues to fight off the virus. Games are being postponed and players are being quarantined. We'll have more on that after the break.
Plus, we revisit our top local stories and update from the mother of a 7-year-old Desert Hot Springs boy on his condition after a brutal attack. Plus, with school starting in about a week for many local students, how prepared are teachers for online learning? We'll take a look. Stay with us.
Welcome back. Time now for a check on your NBC Palm Springs sports headlines. Like the rest of the country, Major League Baseball trying to fight off COVID-19. After reports of outbreaks of cases with the Miami Marlins, the league is dealing with the aftermath. 4 more Marlins have tested positive, bringing the total number to 17 in just that organization. MLB officials announced they won't play any games until next Monday at the earliest. The Phillies, who played the Marlins over this past weekend, will not play again until Friday, though they've had no positive tests in the Phillies organization. Meanwhile, the Yankees, who were supposed to play the Phillies, and the Orioles, who were supposed to be playing the Marlins, will now play each other in Baltimore tomorrow and Thursday. Now to the NFL. Rumors have been swirling for weeks, and yesterday the league made it official. There will be no preseason games this year. NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell made the announcement in an open letter saying the coronavirus pandemic had changed how the 2020 football season would be handled. But some good news for us NFL fans. Players are starting to arrive at training camp, and you can see this video of Tom Brady arriving at the Bucs camp. Okay. Eager to kick off the season with his new team. There are many COVID-19 protocols in place, including daily testing for the first 2 weeks of camp. Because of this, teams won't begin full contact until mid-August. And as NFL camps open up, players are beginning to opt out of the season for various reasons. Some are high risk for the virus. Others have family members they don't want to jeopardize, and some simply aren't comfortable playing at this time. There have been players across many teams that have opted out, but the Patriots have been hardest hit, with 6 players saying they don't want to play this year. Players reportedly have another week to decide if they're going to play in the upcoming season. It's a quick check of what we've got for sports these days. The Dodgers are playing the Astros right now, and so far, nobody's hit anybody with a baseball. Mike's in with your weather next. Hey, Mike.
Gino, I still can't get used to Tom Brady playing for the Bucs. We're taking a live look outside right now. This is our Agua Caliente casino cam, and you know what? It is a bit fuzzy out there. We're going to give you a better look when we come back. There we go. Here's a gorgeous live look to bring you back with. This is our 111 cam, courtesy of our friend Walter Clark, giving you a live look of what's happening at the river right now. The water looks extremely refreshing out there, and there is a bit of that haze hanging out there. There is some moisture in the atmosphere, especially along the northern edge of the valley. It's that marine layer cloud cover that gets pushed inland during the day. Not coming here, though. We are warm, we are dry, and we're going to increase on that as we go towards the weekend. In fact, a ridge of high pressure setting up shop right over top Arizona and Utah. It'll be kind of right on the line in between the two. What it's doing is it's just taking any cloud cover, any potential storm activity, and sending it well away from us. You can see that cloud cover making its way away from the north and east there. There is a pretty powerful low punching into the Pacific Northwest this weekend. That'll help because it's warm there right now. And that monsoonal flow we've been tracking all month long in Arizona and New Mexico, they're going to get a break from that as well. Anything that's happening in mainland Mexico is being pushed off into the eastern Pacific. Keeping an eye on this fella right here, TD9, or actually potential to be TD9. Some good news and some not so good news with it. We'll focus on the good news first. Is as long as you can keep one of these storm systems over land, they don't get the fuel that they need to become hurricanes. It's when they're over open water, especially warm open water, that they get the potential to strengthen. Currently, you've got winds that are sustained about 40 miles an hour, gusts to about 50, again, nowhere near hurricane status. But the not so good news is the forecast path has it right over top of Puerto Rico. Goodness knows they don't need any more grief. And then over top of land, and then potentially making a landfall along the Florida Peninsula. If it does that, it looks like it would be on Saturday, so we'll keep a close eye on that. Of course, if there's any variations that put this storm system over open water, we could be tracking a hurricane as early as Friday. Temperatures across North America are hot, 90 in New York, some heat advisories in place there, 89 in Miami, 112 in Phoenix. And look at the West Coast, 93 in Portland tomorrow. That'll be the same number in Billings, 92 in Denver, and 81 in Vancouver. Wow. We were pretty wow today. 115 is where we got to, nowhere near the record that was set back in 1995. That's the hottest it's ever been recorded at Palm Springs International. We were well away from that, and we got ourselves in the 70s overnight. So yay us. That will change this weekend. An excessive heat watch goes in place Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. I'll show you the numbers in a moment. Excessive heat warning in place for parts east. We're going to be seeing temperatures that will definitely get into the low 120s, especially off towards Arizona. Good news is it's going to be a dry heat, though, so if you are using an evaporative cooler, you're going to be just fine. Temperatures right now in the 60s and 70s along the coast. 111 here in Palm Springs, 113 in Yuma. Closer to home, looking at 111 in Coachella, some mid-90s in the Yucca Valley, and some mid-70s in Big Bear. Gusty winds tonight will give way to some much calmer conditions around midnight tonight. We'll get ourselves in the single digits. It's going to be slow to cool, though. We will only end up in the low 80s tomorrow, and then once again in that 115 range. Palm Springs, Indio, and Palm Desert look for 114 in Thousand Palms and 106 in Joshua Tree. Your Comfort Air 7-day forecast shows the heat a-coming this weekend. Again, 119s on Friday and Saturday. We'll back it off slightly into some 1-teens with overnights in the 70s next week.
In tonight's Showbiz Report, we don't know exactly what it's going to look like, but the 72nd Annual Primetime Emmy Awards are slated to go on in September. And this morning, the Television Academy announced the nominations for those honors. Mark Barger has more.
I guess we have ourselves a reckoning. A superhero saga that tackles real-world racism led the way at this morning's Emmy Award nominations. HBO's Watchmen earned 26 overall, including Best Limited Series and acting bids for Regina King and Jeremy Irons. Disney Plus also scored with its Star Wars spin-off, The Mandalorian, taking one of 8 nominations for Best Drama. Its rivals include Better Call Saul, Regal Chronicle, The Crown, and past winner, The Handmaid's Tale. Netflix's Ozark is also in the Best Drama race. In fact, it led all dramas with 18 nominations overall, including ones for series stars Jason Bateman and Laura Linney. Killing Eve is another Best Drama contender, with Jodie Comer and Sandra Oh both up for Best Actress. Stranger Things also earned a Best Drama bid, as did HBO's media tale, Succession.
This is the big leagues, kid. Gotta start acting like professionals.
Best comedies among the 20 nominations for Amazon's The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, including a Best Actress nod for Rachel Brosnahan. Schitt's Creek is also a Best Comedy nominee, along with Curb Your Enthusiasm and Dead to Me, whose co-stars Christina Applegate and Linda Cardellini will both vie for Best Actress.
I have an announcement to make.
NBC's The Good Place is also part of the Best Comedy field, with Ted Danson up for Best Actor. HBO's Insecure is another comedy contender, along with The Kominsky Method and the vampire series What We Do in the Shadows.
Do you mean I could have did this at the house?
SNL alum Leslie Jones hosted this morning's virtual nominations announcement. Jimmy Kimmel will MC the Emmys on September 20th. Mark Barker, NBC News.
NBC's This Is Us and Apple TV Plus flagship series The Morning Show both missed out on Best Drama nominations, but Sterling K. Brown from This Is Us and Morning Show co-stars Jennifer Aniston and Steve Carell each earned acting nominations. Overall, Netflix set a record with 160 nominations. Brie King, the record, HBO had set the record last year with 137. We'll be right back after the break. Governor Gavin Newsom announces the Central Valley is getting extra funding to aid in its fight against coronavirus. Some are hoping that means help is on the way to farm workers, a population with significant infection rates. Local advocates say farm workers need same protections and respect other frontline workers are getting.
We must take action to ensure that our farm workers are protected, especially if we're going to avoid any kind of the disruption to our food supply.
Assemblyman Rivas has introduced COVID-19 farm worker relief package, which would expand access to testing, personal protective equipment, and provide safe agricultural housing.
7-year-old Gavin Ludwig is still in the hospital recovering from a head injury. He was brutally attacked on his way home from a pool party in Desert Hot Springs. His mom has not left the hospital since he was admitted on July 18th. She says he's making small progress, like sitting up and moving his left arm, but doctors won't be able to know the extent of the damage until the swelling goes down.
To see him lying in the hospital bed, uncomfortable, crying, not being able to get up and play like he normally does, it's just heartbreaking. He has to have a titanium plate inserted because the bones were so broken, fragmented, and he'll have to have that replaced as his head grows.
Daniel Polson was charged with attempted murder for the attack. He has an extensive list of previous charges, including molesting a child under the age of 18. The court ordered him to be mentally evaluated before he could stand trial. He's been ruled to be mentally incompetent to stand trial 11 other times. His next court date is in September.
Some students in the Coachella Valley back in school next week, but they'll be learning online. But some teachers are concerned about funding. They want to make sure students are equipped to learn and teachers equipped to teach. According to the National Center for Education Statistics, California teachers spend on average $664 on classroom and learning supplies out of their own pockets. And well, that was before the pandemic.
I think you're
figure is very conservative because I think it's probably more around $1,000.
I know a number of educators who have spent money on technology this summer, and even some that are purchasing their own platforms, virtual platforms, because they're the ones that the students like the best.
Some teachers will be teaching online, but PSUSD is allowing teachers the choice to teach online from their classrooms or from their homes. Other districts have yet to vote on that particular matter.
Even during this challenging and uncertain time, there are still so many silver linings occurring in our valley. And one of them is the sight of the BAM, Behind a Miracle, vans. The free service brings cancer patients who cannot afford transportation to Eisenhower Medical Center for their cancer treatments. This generous and crucial service was the brainchild of local resident Selby Dunham, who was diagnosed with breast cancer back in 2005 and realized many of her fellow patients had difficulty getting to their chemotherapy appointments. She wants our valley to know that the vans will not stop during this pandemic, and neither will she, despite some new challenges of her own.
Well, Selby, you look beautiful, absolutely glowing.
Thank you.
But I know that you've had a little bit of a struggle, a little bit of a challenge. So tell me about that.
Yes, I have. As you know, I am a breast cancer survivor, and it had been almost 15 years. And last October, 2019, I was diagnosed. I had a recurrence and stage 4 breast cancer. It's metastasized to my bones and to my lymph nodes. And so we got right on it, and I'm doing a regimen of daily chemo in pill form and a hormone blocker. And then once a month I get a shot to help strengthen my bones and do my blood work, and the doctors make sure I'm okay. And right now I'm doing great. I'm doing really well.
Well, it's so great to know that all is well and you look healthy and you're glowing. Yep. And you have news to share too, because I know our valley is so appreciative of what you do with the BAM vans, but that everyone should know that the BAM vans are still available even during the pandemic.
They are. We were able to fund another year for the transportation. We have 2 vans and then the Ford Flex. And BAM takes care of everything. We take care of the staff that drives it, and the maintenance and the insurance and the gas. And we were very fortunate to be able to fund that, to keep that going, because that's really important. People have to get to their treatments, even through all of this. They have to get there. We're able to service a lot of people, and it's been over like 12,000 rides we've given over the years. So it's amazing.
And you are so amazing too, Selby. Thank you so much for all you've done to help our valley. For NBC Cares Silver Linings, I'm Sandy Newton.
brighter side of the news is brought to you by Holland RV, located off the I-10 at Washington.
Dogs in Dubai can now enjoy a day at the pool at an indoor water park for dogs. The dogs can enjoy a cool splash in the water to exercise and escape the heat of the Middle Eastern summer heat. Pet owners who drop their pets off can also enjoy playtime with their dogs. Packages at Aqua Park, get it with the paw in it, start at $20 for 2 hours. Really spoiled dogs.
That's right, Dubai. Too much money. Before we go, once again, QR code. And in case you're wondering what scanning this will do, it will take you to all these places here in front of me, including Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, photograph thing, TikTok, Instagram, and of course our website. So you can see any or all or parts of our show. If there's stories you missed or you want to get more information on, you can find it all at these locations here on your screen. See you at 11.
Gonna tell myself